Hi, folks. Dave Schmidt here. Hey, it's the morning of Tuesday, April 21st, and this is for the 22nd newsletter and radio program. Now, this week, the video is going to be much shorter. I'm not going to go into a teaching session this week, but there's a couple topics that I want to cover with you, and I'm going to discuss them extensively on the radio program tomorrow night on April 22nd. Now, couple things, what are they? First is about project funding that is happening with the ambassador. Yes, they are progressing. Scores of people have made their presentations to the ambassador. I will discuss what that process entails. And some of you had emailed me and said, I haven't been talking about the RV a lot. You're absolutely right, because there wasn't hardly any news for a long time that was developing. I did touch on it a little bit a couple of weeks ago on the radio program, but I am going to discuss that. But I want to be perfectly clear right here, because I still get emails from a lot of you saying, well, when is it going to happen? What's the rates going to be and stuff like that. Folks, I want to be very clear. As long as it's the money that is coming from the Dragon family through the Red Dragon himself and through the ambassador, there will be no public RV. That means you are from those sorts of funds. You are not going to be able to go into a bank and take in your 1 million dinar and expect to walk out as a multimillionaire. That is not going to happen in that format. I have been saying for months, do not expect an RV to happen as being reported by many of the blog writers. Now, I'll discuss what that means, because, see, if there's going to be an RV, there has to be a source of funds behind it to pay for it. I will go into more detail about that, but I am bringing this up again because things are starting to develop behind the scenes. I cannot go into details about it, some things, because it's very confidential. But here's what I want to say. Whether it's projects that the ambassador is funding from his own personal funds right now, and I've mentioned that he's doing that to kickstart the process so the team can get the experience behind themselves and get the bugs worked out. He's doing that on a personal basis at this time. Whether it's the projects or whether it could be the potential, and I'm using that keyword there, potential, of an RV at a later time, it's always important that there be some form of a personal investment from you. I want to be very clear, and the family has been very clear, and I've said this multiple times, especially since Charlotte and I met with the Red Dragon in early December. All funds coming from the family are only released with mission and purpose. What does that mean? Funds are not going to be handed out like candy, and don't expect a Santa Claus to come and give you $1 million. Folks, that is not going to happen. See, some of you are beginning to complain because you have to pay a small fee to put together the business plan or go through the business plan workshop, and then you have to pay a small fee to be able to make your presentation to the ambassador. They are not going to allow you just to come up and hand you millions of dollars for you to be able to do with whatever you want without some sort of a small personal investment. And why is that? There are CPAs and accountants that have worked with nonprofit organizations for absolutely years. And I myself personally, I have been around nonprofit fundraising for close to 30 years. And here's what we see over and over and over and over again. People who don't have the experience of running small businesses or running small nonprofits, and their finances are somewhat tight, and then when they receive sums of money, they will have a tendency to take it and spend it on themselves versus the intent of what they said. They will submit a business plan and outlining the budget of where all the money is going to go. And then what happens, they end up spending it personally on themselves. Lawsuits get filed against them. And if you think that doesn't happen, it happens a lot. Folks, if you don't understand the need of a business plan, then you need to take that workshop. Let me give an illustration. I was talking with one of the team members just yesterday, and what she had said was there was a gentleman who came in and submitted a 2-page document of just bullet points of his ideas. And you said, well, okay, your ideas are absolutely great and are absolutely wonderful. Now, how are you going to logistically carry this out and put it into operation so the funds are used with mission and purpose in a correct and responsible manner? And he was taken back. He didn't understand why. You see, they're not just going to give money for just ideas. They're going to give money where there is shown responsibility to take the money, hire staff, develop your infrastructure, put it to work, and make it do what your intention is to do. And it can't just happen with just ideas. There has to be a solid plan behind it as well. That is basic 101 of what is required of when you're requesting grants. And this is like requesting grants. Now let's talk about then the potential of an RV. Now, some of you are still saying, well, why should you come to my workshops? It's real clear. If there is to be a prioritization of funding, of releasing, then obviously I have to make a choice about where that is going to develop. And those who have chosen to come to the workshops have chosen to make a small investment in themselves, in learning and in educating and in developing the potential of a team to work together. If I have to make that choice, if we have to make that choice, obviously those folks are going to be the priority. I have over 10,000 names on my newsletter list. And don't expect that money's going to be handed out like candy. Purpose and mission behind funds being released that comes from the family that I am associated with. That's why it's extremely important that if you want to do project funding, that you invest in yourself through that process. If you want to anticipate, and I'm using that key word because I have absolutely no firm things at this time, but things are developing with potential. If you want to anticipate receiving from the family via through me RV funds, then expect to put out a small investment. And you may say, well, I can't afford it. I have always said anybody can come if there's room that is there and if I'm not sold out. I offer this at a scholarship rate of only $35, and folks, that $35 doesn't even cover the expenses to put on this type of a workshop. To even just break even with the expenses of renting the facility and the travel expenses and stuff like that, at $35, I would have to have probably somewhere between 70 and 80 people just to break even, okay? So most of you can come up with $35. It's not a question of I don't have the money. It's a question of I want to be there. And yes, I have even had a few occasions people show up at the door and said they couldn't afford anything and we let them in. Now obviously there has to be an ability to pay expenses on us, and that's why the fee is charged. And folks, that cost is very, very minimal. So I'm not going to belabor that issue. But I can say, if you expect and want to see some of this come through, then expect to have some sort of a small investment on your part. Why? Because what it shows is that you're believing in this as an issue. You're believing in something for yourself. You're believing that you have the ability to come up with a very small amount of money to help others to seed that process. These funds are like seed money is what they are. That's really important. Okay, so that's it. Now, workshop dates, yes, again, May 2nd in San Jose. That one is on my website. You can go there to the registration page. Plenty of seats are available. Tentatively, 2 weeks later, May 16th in Atlanta. I will have that information probably in the next couple of days. And then in a couple more days, it looks like I'm going to be able to have a hosted workshop in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities, 1 week later on May 23rd. So May 2nd in San Jose is there. May 16th in Atlanta is tentative but looking very, very positive. And May 23rd with a hosted workshop in the Tri-Cities, Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota on the 23rd. That looks very, very probable. So folks, that's what's happening. This is where you get to invest in yourself. This is where you get to develop to be a part of your team. And this is where you get to know that when these things do develop and come about, there is a support system that will be there for you. And yes, we can't always handle 10,000 people all at once. So there would be a prioritization, those for projects and those for the RV as well. So thank you for allowing me to share that with you, and and all the support that is there. Now, a couple other things. There's another item I need to discuss on the radio program. On the blog sites, there's a gentleman that posts is called Zap and Poof, and Zap had pretty much taken what I would consider to be a very negative, unprofessional attack toward the ambassador and how he is funding projects on a post the other day. Normally, we wouldn't even discuss this and we would bypass it. But when it's such distorted disinformation, and it's incorrect information, and it's also questioning the integrity of what he is wanting to do, then we need to put out information to correct that. Otherwise, folks will believe that because that's the only thing that they have heard. Now, I was really disappointed because, see, the folks there at Zap, and Zap is also LandaChinaGlobal.com with the bonds processing. They are one and the same. He won't come out and admit that publicly, but lots of people know that. It's all there. It's all documented. Look at it, what he reports as Zap, and then how he talks on the LandaChinaGlobal.com radio programs that they have each week. They're basically saying all the same thing. But we're on the same page here, Zap. You and I and the ambassador have the same function, same purpose, along with your team of what we're wanting to accomplish. There's no need to get into frivolous attacks like that. So I am going to discuss that. And Zap, I know your personal name, and a lot of people know who you are personally. I'm not going to disclose that here, but would you send me an email? Or even the others, that whether it's Will or whether it's Doug, that are on the LandaChinaGlobal.com site on your radio programs, I ask you, send me an email. Let's sit down and talk how we can work through together. Now, yes, we may see things differently, but that's okay because we have the same goal, the same mission, the same purpose of the same intent. And maybe we might understand things a little bit differently because maybe at the root we're in touch with different parts of the family. I share what I come with, what they share with me, and obviously Zap is sharing. And when you folks at China Global are sharing things because you have different contacts than what I have. But both of them have the same mission and purpose. So let's work this together, okay? So thank you, folks. That's going to be the discussions on the radio program tomorrow night. I would encourage you to listen in, okay? Alrighty, thanks a lot. Love you all. Okay, bye-bye.